Hey minions, welcome to Crank It Up. I'm Jim Price, and this is March Smashness 2020, The Gauntlet. This is going to be a Postmortem series where I'm going to be talking about what happened and what could have happened over the course of the games of Round 1, since I tend to think that those are the most formative matches. It's where you might see an upset that will sting the most if your favorite team went out early. It's also the one where the majority of teams are actually eliminated because we go from 32 to 16. So if you haven't seen the results yet, go check out our Facebook page to find out what happened for today. The link is going to be in the description. I'm going to be putting these postmortem videos out after the results have already been posted, so consider this a spoiler warning in advance for all future days. So, by now you hopefully had time to see the results. You would know that Itty Critters will advance with a score of 2-0, beating Mountie Tornados both times in a best-of-3 matchup. So there wasn't actually a Game 3. As far as how this game was polled, it was 62% thought that Itty Critters would win, and 38% thought that Mountie Tornados would win. As far as the average confidence factor that I like to call it, I looked at all the round 1 percentages of how many people thought the favorite, and I use favorite in quotes because obviously this is heavily matchup dependent, but on average 57% of people thought that the higher seeded team was going to win. So that means that Itty Critter Grimms were above average by a couple of percentage points. But this, like all matchups, was a very interesting one because there's a lot of damage that Moose can do to this team. And also the bases were stacked heavily against Itty Grimms, which I mentioned in my Mountie Tornado video even before we knew who the opponent was going to be. Just by virtue of being in the game, Mountie Tornadoes brings a lot of 3-2 bases and a lot of bases that would give them tremendous amount of support, like the squared circle, which is action recursion, which can be really powerful with their tornado specials. So I picked Itty Critter Grimms to win this matchup. I actually picked them to win the entire tournament, not just because they were my number 1 seed, not because they were the number 1 seed, but because I just liked their route to the playoffs, and I thought that they were built for the long haul. And I think it definitely showed in these two matchups. So the great Itty Critter Grimms claim to fame is not just that they have great power outputs with the Grimm minions, but that they have theoretically infinite recursion. They have multiple cards that can recycle other cards, so they're never actually running out of their best plays. They will just rebuild and reattack multiple times. And that suits them well, because Mountie Tornadoes can make life very difficult in the meantime. I remember in the second game, Mountie Tornadoes were able to use a number of their specials to not only steal a base, but get very good position on the next base. So much so that the Punisher, who was playing Itty Critter Grimms, decided not to even bother with second place on the base that Mountie Tornadoes was already up 16 power. He went for his own base to try and minimize Simon Stern's score as opposed to maximizing his. Plus, he needed to strike while he could because he couldn't risk losing another base. But the thing about Itty Critter Grimms is that they're just built to last, and he can do a 0 to breakpoint burst out of nowhere and be able to get the cards back in order to sustain him for the long haul. In the first game, as well as the second, you definitely saw the threat of the bases coming into play. Tropical Paradise and Q Point are practically built for Mountie Tornadoes. They are really easy to score solo because you generally only need either one minion to trip Tropical Paradise, and Tornadoes can easily move that minion onto the base and then immediately kick them off as the base is scoring with one of their specials. And with Q Point, though it takes a much larger time, you would need to have either Rainbow Rock with power on the base in order to avoid Q Point's destruction, or you need the Tornado Mounties to not have picked up to kick you off, because Q Point will destroy all the minions and actions on the base but one card. You typically would pick a minion, picked up would kick them off, and Mountie Tornadoes would get a very easy 5 points. And that would also cost Itty Critters 4 points. Rainbow Rock would survive, but one of the things you have to consider about with this matchup is that not in Kansas would actually get rid of Rainbow Rock. And Rainbow Rock is not exactly easy to play because there's only 2 moments when he can come into play. You have to either win a previous base or use Evolution, and Evolution requires 2 copies. So there's only 2 copies of Evolution, and it requires a sacrifice. So if Rainbow Rock did come out and was on Q Point, or if he wasn't on Q Point, Not in Kansas could actually get rid of it. This is a rule that has been in the game for a very long time, but it gained increasing relevance with Titans that when a base leaves play, you discard all cards on it unless it specifically says otherwise. And Not in Kansas only mentions to leave the minions. As a matter of fact, I have the exact wording here. So all minions from the original base remain. Now, the fact that it destroys the base actions is irrelevant. Not in Kansas is kind of special because it also destroys on minion actions, which Terraforming and Burn It Down really don't do. But by virtue of the base leaving play, Rainbow Rock would be gone. And Rainbow Rock is a big part of that team because he's part of the infinite recursion, and every little bit of power helps. It would also get rid of both copies of Grimm's Blessing and both copies of Ittypedia, and that's just another one of the ways that Mountie Tornados can mess with them that may have been overlooked. And I think the score shows it, because 15-13 and 15-14, those are extremely competitive scores. And watching the second game, you would have felt like Mountie Tornados had a chance at winning it because they were in control for most of it. Itty Critters had to claw back, which again, because of their infinite recursion. When you start seeing a late 3-2 base or a late Dragon's Lair appeared in both games, and that's really brutal because it means that the Tornadoes will pull everyone over in order to just make you waste as many cards as possible because you're getting 2 points either way. The three cards that you draw as a bonus is sort of like a consolation prize almost. That's not a base I typically like to break. Itty's greatest strength is that they could break bases out of nowhere. They have a 0 to breakpoint strategy with very little setup that can do at least 24 power, possibly more, depending on Ittypedia or Rainbow Rock, or if Critter Champion happens to be in your discard pile or in your hand. It's easily 24 power. But Tornadoes can defend against that by jumping on at the last second. They have the Dust Devils. They have their own specials to move to a base as it's scoring. Now, you could make an argument that Itty Critters can kill the Dust Devils with Shell Shock, but there's a little bit of a problem there because you would typically want to do that on a recurring basis with Critter Champion, and the Dust Devils would spread out to multiple bases. You wouldn't want to use a Critter Coach there because they're one of your big guns for this team with the Grimminions. So you wouldn't use a Critter Coach to bring out Shell Shock to destroy the Dust Devil. And you also wouldn't want to just play Shell Shock from your hand because then that means that you can no longer destroy them because Shell Shock is in play and loses its spam ability. Itty Critters can be kind of hard to play because specifically they revolve around spamming the same minion over and over again and choosing the best one for the job. In fact, when I picked Itty Critters as my number 1 seed, I thought that their technical complexity was fairly low, and I realized that's a mistake. I think it's actually higher than we would think because of the fact that there's so many things you have to consider from your deck and from your discard pile. Frog Prince being a clear MVP in the second game because he can grab anything from the discard pile. It's another form of recursion, but it's also an immediate attack. You can use I Select You, and you have to know that you can grab Frog Prince and play another minion to complement it. So if I have a Critter Coach in one hand and a Critter Coach in the discard pile, I can play I Select You to get Frog Prince to play a Critter Coach who will turn Frog Prince into the other Critter Coach. Both of them can grab Grimminions, and that's 16 power. You have to basically know that you can do that, and I would have thought that Itty Critters, because they were the number 1 seed, would have been higher than 62%, but I wonder if it's just the general fear of Itty Critters that kept that number lower. I always thought that Mountie Tornadoes could do interesting things, and I definitely saw it during these matches, but obviously I bet on Itty Critter Grimms to win because I have them winning everything. Some other things that could be really annoying about this matchup is that when you use Picked Up on a Grimminion, and for those who aren't clear, since we have a lot of new people, a Grimminion is my trademark name for Hansel and Gretel or Rose Red and the other Snow White. The Grimm Power 2 minions, it's just easier to refer to them as a pack, the Grimminions. If you use picked up on one of them and they exist as a pair, you're not kicking up 4 power, you're kicking up 6. And that can be really powerful because that's a large negation as far as specials go. And for all intents and purposes, it's pretty unblockable against this set. You're going to get 1 or 2 powerful punches out of Mountie Tornados with their specials, but they have to leave something in play, which benefits the Itty Critter Grimms as well. If you kick off a Grimminion, that Grimminion is still in play. They can recycle the other one with Rainbow Rock, or one of their many others like Leafaroo or another story. They have plenty of recursion cards. Even Frog Prince, though that's not how I would do it. It's still in play, so they still have a head start, and they may be able to use that to solo the next base. The final thing that I wanted to say was that, how do I want to phrase this? Mountie Tornadoes, they have 1 minion in 1 action, but they can make it really powerful if they know what they're doing. You almost sort of want to hold on to a certain amount of cards because they're limited by, they can play 1 minion, they can play 1 action. Now in both of these games, the bases helped out with that. Transformation Spring, turning Dust Devils into larger minions, that played a big role, definitely in game 2. But they have some really massive plays because they can move multiple times. And with Bring 'em In, which will give you +1 counter every time the minion moves, a minion can go to double digits very quickly, particularly if you put it on Cyclone. So there's almost a sense that even though you have no card draw, even though you have no deck manipulation outside of what bases are giving you, you may want to hold on to certain cards in order to maximize their payoff, because what Mountie Tornadoes can do that Itty Critters generally cannot is break 2 bases at once. And that has to do with the Tornado specials, because you can use the Tornado special to move onto a base. You can kick yourself off the base if you have a very large minion. I've gotten Cyclone to be 15 power with Bring 'em In. And if then I use the special to move him after the base scores into another base, that's where I can create a 2-base combo, possibly even solo scoring, because all the movement, even as part of the special, would make it bigger. So Mountie Tornadoes requires a little bit of sort of advanced planning, but it's also very risky because without the additional card draw, you don't know if the plan you're waiting for is actually ever going to happen. So that also works against them. Situationally, they can be very powerful. I almost feel really bad for them because I like them. Just because they're the number 32 seed doesn't mean that they're bad. Someone had to be last. As I explained in the selection video, they were the clear, no one liked them best. No one voted them higher than 21, I think. So they made sense to go last, but the entire time I was nervous that Mountie Tornadoes could do a lot against Itty Critters, and hopefully the score reflects that this game was very close, but the better team is moving on. That's it for the postmortem for today. Tomorrow I'll take a look at Shapeshifting Vigilantes versus Miskatonic Wizards, another exciting matchup. Thanks so much for watching. I'll see you tomorrow, but for now, let's shut it down.